Welcome to the Connected Spirit Podcast, a space where the mystical and the human experience merge, where we explore what it really means to walk a spirit-led path. I'm Courtney Dawson, an ethical medium and mentor, and for as long as I can remember, I have felt the presence of the spirit world. But my journey hasn't been simple. It's been one of self-discovery, healing from religious and emotional trauma, navigating fear, judgment, and the loneliness that comes with embracing something the world doesn't always understand. This podcast is here to take what was once considered woo and bring it into the real lived experience of being human. Because mediumship isn't just something we do, it's who we are. Here we dive into the conversations no one else is having, breaking down misconceptions, exploring the unseen, and normalizing the journey of deep connection. We'll talk about the beauty and the struggle of being a medium. We'll laugh, we'll reflect, we'll go deep. And most importantly, we'll remember who we are, why we're here, and how spirit moves through us all. So if you've ever felt something more, if you've ever questioned the unseen, or if you're simply ready to embrace the fullness of your spiritual path, you're in the right place. Welcome back to the Connected Spirit Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Courtney Dawson. Today, I'm sitting down with Katie Beecher. She is a medical and emotional intuitive and licensed professional counselor with over 35 years of experience. She's known for creating detailed physical, emotional, and spiritual reports and even intuitive paintings using a client's name and age. She's also the author of an international Amazon best-selling book that brings together holistic health, intuition, and spiritual healing. And if you've ever wondered, is this fear, is this emotion, or is this actually my intuition in my body? Today's conversation is for you. We're going to be talking about how the body speaks, what symptoms might be trying to say to you, and how to work with that in an ethical and grounded way. Katie, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
I followed you for quite a while. I've always found it interesting because you have a different lens in which you look or approach spirituality. And I think it's really from more of this holistic point of view. And I'm wondering, when you look back over your life, how did your body first start trying to get your attention?
Such a great question. I have been very in tune with my body from a really young age. And I think the very first thing I remember is through the gut. I've always said that my gut is my bat signal.
Yeah.
And I think that's not uncommon, right, for people. Always had, stomach issues or motion sickness or, nausea or different IBS type things and didn't relate them to emotions until much later in life. I should say, like 16 is when I kind of started my spiritual and health journey with an eating disorder, bulimia. So, yeah, it's all gut stuff, right? I think a very, very young age, I didn't come from a family that really recognized or allowed you to speak or be heard. So, when I would have gut symptoms, it was shushed, or I was told you don't really have car sickness. There's nothing wrong with you. It's fine. But really
Yeah.
looking back, that was my way of trying to tell my family there's something wrong. I need attention.
Wow, that's really powerful because as somebody who's a medium, obviously I'm intuitive, but a lot of people that are listening are intuitive. I find it really interesting that so many of us have had issues with our guts. And
Mhm.
then when we go to see a doctor, they're like, well, the scan, the test says you're fine. So that's actually a big thing telling us, okay, there's something like way deeper here.
It's huge. And if you think about the gut symbolically, it has
Yeah,
to do with a lot of different things, but self-esteem and
yeah,
self-love and nourishment. We make all of our neurochemicals there. Our immune system is there. So many of these things are impacted by what happens in our gut. And, the gut feeling is a real phrase that comes from somewhere. So it's tied to your intuition. And even as much work as I've done on myself and as much insight as I have, there are still times when my gut will act up. I won't realize I'm nervous about something. My husband will pick it up because, people who know us better. But
yeah.
then after the event is over, whatever happens to my system, and I'll be like, oh man, I was actually more anxious than I thought or more concerned than I thought. So it's kind of a protection too, that your emotions go in there, get stored for a little while so that you can function better.
So this is powerful. Well, I want to go a little bit deeper. When you were 16, you actually called your pediatrician and said, "Hey, I've got these symptoms. I need some help." But you didn't involve your parents. When did you recognize, okay, there's an inner voice that's guiding me here and I need to do something about this?
I think that I always knew from a really young age. I remember being 3 and my parents had a fight about eggs. I've told the story before. And just looking up and hearing this voice saying, "You are more equipped to raise yourself than they are. You're on your own."
Mm,
So I always knew that there was something else there and didn't know that I was talking to dead people at the time or spirit. It
yeah.
was just a natural sort of thing. Then developing the eating disorder was partly family stuff and partly being bullied for developing too soon, according to a group of girls. So it caused me to not like my body, to become disconnected from my body. But the eating disorder symptoms were a way of forcing me to be in my body. So I couldn't ignore the feelings, even though I didn't know all of what I was feeling. There was more going on than I realized. I had some awareness of feeling negative energy from the other side or picking up spirits in my house or from my family. I knew there was a lot more there than I could see and feel. Fortunately, the kind of help that I got, the person was very open to these abilities and talking about this and spirit and intuition. For me, that's the only way I could have recovered.
That's so powerful. And it's tough because even though mediumship and an intuition is more mainstream now, there's still this like stereotype about these individuals who or us individuals that have these abilities. There's something mentally wrong with us. And it's like, well, no, we're actually programmed this way, and our body functions different than people that maybe aren't embracing or aware of their abilities. Thank you for sharing that because I think it's really validating for a lot of people that are listening and they go, wow, there's so many similarities in your story. And I know that because I'm listening to you and I go, yep, yep. A lot of intuitives are asking, is their gut instinct, right? They'll get a feeling of fear, or is this an emotion, or is this a spirit world talking, or is it my intuition? How do you actually begin distinguishing physical intuition, emotional intuition, and spirit communication?
I love that question, and it comes up in every single reading because I teach a technique for how to connect to intuition in the body. The way that I describe intuition is it's an all knowing force connected to unconditional love and acceptance. It's like having a best friend with you, knows everything about you. It can be a combination of guides, people in spirit, and your own inner wisdom. What you call it exactly isn't important. The more you get what you need from that, the less important it is what everybody else is doing and saying, thinking. So it helps with those important boundaries. So, having said that, I get asked, I actually bring it up, because people are often really reluctant to connect with intuition because they're afraid they're going to hear something scary. They're afraid it's going to be something bad. It's usually asking you to do something that's challenging, that you're afraid of, that might be big steps, big changes. And that can feel like fear. And it may bring about fear in reality. What I have heard from my guides is when you are listening, the source isn't as important as the information. Because
Mm,
if you find some quiet time with yourself or do my writing technique, you are naturally going to have thoughts and feelings come to you because you had been distracted from them because you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. When you connect to intuition or the other side, you don't have lightning bolts coming down. Sometimes it feels like a transcendental experience, but for me, most of the time, it just feels like a conversation. It doesn't have to be this big, huge thing for you to be connecting. The first thing is allow what comes to you. And it might be a feeling or a thought or a picture in your head or a physical feeling. Just allow that without judgment, without feeling like you have to respond to it. And then if it feels scary, for example, ask it or yourself, what am I afraid of? What is this fear? What is this bringing up? And because fear, just like nightmares, are really, really important. And it might
Yeah.
be more important than the stuff that feels easy. For example, I work with people a lot on fertility. And underlying some of the fertility stuff can be things like issues in the relationship or resentful feelings with in laws and being like, I don't want those people around my kids, but I don't have the power to do
Okay.
anything about that. Or, financial stuff or things like you need to make changes in how you live and how you eat and how you set boundaries, but that's scary. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that's there. So I think listening to your fears without giving them power over you, letting them be your friends and your teachers is a really great way to approach connecting to intuition in your body.
That is so powerful. When I was doing my ministry training to become an ordained spiritualist minister, I had to do Bible study. I was also raised in a Christian church, so I know the Bible a bit, and I find it interesting. I'm not a Christian, but I love Jesus. In the Bible, he always talks about don't fear, don't fear, don't fear. And we see this through many of the guides, the teachers, ascended masters that come through. They're telling us this all the time. And our body is trying to say, hey, don't fear. It's the same message in a different form. That's really powerful what you're sharing, Katie. Oof.
Yeah, and it's
I love
fear is really on the subject of fear. We need anxiety. It's a
yeah.
primal thing. It keeps us
Yeah.
alive, kept us from getting eaten by tigers and things like that. If you're feeling anxious, it's because something needs to change or something isn't right or you need a different job or there's something going on in your body. So instead of seeing fear as the enemy, right? Not that it can't take over and have a life of its own. Think, what is that fear about? What is it telling me? And maybe the thing I'm afraid of isn't as scary as I think. What are little steps you can take toward dealing with it?
That's so powerful because there's so much in our world that gleans for our attention. And a lot of it's fear based, and that's how they hook people in. But yet, we don't have to be hooked in. We can look at it as a teacher, really, right?
And even
Yeah,
just
that's,
us as spiritual beings, with the work that you and I do, it's so sad when people label it as evil or going against God, and it's so the opposite. So I think that also
yeah.
people get caught up in that. Is it okay for me to connect to intuition? Well, yeah, of course.
And I have that with people inquiring about my circles and my mentorship. They have these abilities, but there's some sort of doctrine or creed they've had an affiliation with that says this is wrong, suppress all of these abilities. I did that shit too, pardon me, but I did. And then I start having all these physical symptoms, anxiety and all this other stuff. When we suppress these latent abilities, our body will speak to us through different ways and go, hey, you need to listen, right? It's crazy. And this is just like, woof. I love this. This is so aligned with what Spirit's been teaching me and many of the people that listen to the podcast and people that are in my space. Now, you've actually created detailed reports and then you do intuitive paintings too. You just use a person's name and their age. Can you walk us through what that process is like for you, especially in your body? I'm so curious about this.
Yes, it's a system that I developed
Yeah.
because I've been a teacher and I wanted to give people as much information as I could, and it's in writing. I create the report and painting before I meet with people. They get it, they have it. I start with a template that I've created, and it's set up by the chakras so that I make sure I cover as much territory as possible. It's emotional, physical, spiritual, and it gets into things like relationships and physical symptoms and emotional symptoms and career and traumas in the past and so many things. The goal is to look at the root causes and contributors to what is going well and what is not. Cover all bases. I have my blank template. I start by drawing a card from an oracle deck, get me out of my own way and
Mhm.
give me a direction. I try to get an image of that person. It's a created image because most of the time I haven't seen them, go into their body, get a feel for their energy, and ask for the most glaring things. If I were to ask somebody, what did you contact me about? What are those things? I start with that and then I get more detailed as I go down my chart. I
Yeah.
see pictures, hear things, and feel things in my body. I communicate with the other side, with their loved ones also come through during the report, their pets and things. And it's really, really comprehensive, but I just sort of let things come in, try not to interpret, because then we
Hmm.
mess things up and do spirits work for it, and then we are wrong. And then the intuitive soul painting, it's a watercolor. I usually do it after the painting, and it will either be usually be a figure, a plant, an animal, insect, something that symbolizes the person. My guides give me a color to start with, and every single color has a meaning. The position has a meaning, where it is on the body, the positioning of hands and legs and head, all of those things have meaning, and it's different for every person. The same with the intuitive signals. Yours may be different from other people. I like the paintings because it's a symbolic way of getting information rather than words, because words we can make our own, but
Mm.
the lines and colors and things really just come straight through. I'm a big fan of Jungian psychology. And so it allows me to present information in a less threatening way, for example. If I see a lot of red around the first and second chakras, and that can be, depending on the person, a sign that there's been abuse. And I don't like to put things like that in a report. I don't know who's going to see them. I don't know if they've ever told
Yeah.
anybody about this. It's delicate. So by my guides putting it on the piece of paper, the people know what it is, and I can also be like, hey, this is what I'm picking up. And it's a safer way to start exploring it rather than just words, which can be a lot. So yeah, it's a really cool process. I wish I could tell you exactly how I do it, but I can't. So,
That's so powerful too, because words can be really triggering, and colors and drawing and lines and symbols, they can mean multiple things. And so that really has the potential to create a deeper impact on the person who's actually receiving your drawing. This is so cool.
yeah, it looks like a child did them. So it's kind of playful. People really like them. They often frame them or put them up where they can see them. Being an actual artist, I was a little apprehensive of that. Like, we're all apprehensive of doing new things, but it's been a really cool tool.
Oh, that's so neat. Really fascinating. What shifts do you see in people when they start regulating their nervous system? How does that impact the clarity of their intuition or their spiritual abilities? I want to talk about the nervous system because it almost seems like it's a fad now online. For someone who's been doing my own vagus nerve work the past year, I didn't realize how significant and impactful it actually is on your overall well-being, even outside of your mediumistic abilities.
Yes, absolutely. Your nervous system is connected to your fascia, which is a netting around your body that picks up emotion. It affects every single thing. If your nervous system is on edge, which a lot of us grew up that way, a lot of us are feeling that way now, right? Yep, there you go. It's an uneasiness, it's a feeling of not being able to control things. It's like electricity going through your body and you can't switch it off, which impacts your interactions and everything. I think that one of the things I like to tell people is, and for me too, it's challenging to know when to step in and take control and when to step back and listen for the path that you should take. Thinking of intuition and spirit as a best friend that's always with you, that knows everything about you, that literally does care about you, even though a lot of people don't feel cared about, they don't feel safe. If you let that force in, even if you have to fake it for a while, it's like putting a security blanket over your nervous system.
Mm.
Just being like, it's okay. You don't have to be on all the time. You don't have to control everything in your life. You can't. I deal a lot with health anxiety in people, and worrying about their health, they think that if they're not on top of it, they're going to get sicker or they're not going to heal. And in reality, that health anxiety revs up your nervous system and makes it harder to heal, right? So we have a lot of coping mechanisms that may work at the time or might serve us at the time and then no longer do, but they also then get stored and come out through our nervous system, right? The long and short of it is, for me, my spiritual connection is one of the best things that I can do to have a healthy as possible nervous system.
Absolutely. So you're embracing all aspects of self, but you're also having that support and anchoring into it. You're allowing it to actually be that supportive tool, right?
Yeah, and it's really hard, especially when so much is going on in life and we feel like all these things are going on around us. And what power does one person have? Do we just have to wait some of this stuff out? Like during
Yeah.
COVID, can we do something? What can we do? All of that uncertainty really revs up your nervous system.
Definitely. COVID was a prime example of having no control or feeling like there's no control over your own health. People couldn't even get in to see family doctors. Hospitals were jam-packed. People would have symptoms, but a lot of it wasn't even the virus. It was just them being anxious and stressed out about what if. So disempowering.
And I think I'm still hearing the effects of that. Is something like that going to happen again? Well, we can't predict everything, nor should we. That would be boring. But I think we are still reeling from that.
Definitely. I still have people that are coming in for readings that have had people who've passed to the world of spirit during that time, and they're still grappling with not being able to see them, the emotions that they felt, not being able to get tests done, surgeries done, delays, all of that, and how it's affected them mentally and physically on all levels. It really shook people up. I always talk about ethical mediumship and ethics in the work that we do. For me, it's mediumistic, but ethics when it comes to any of our intuitive work. There's some people that maybe step beyond their level of expertise. So, for you, when it comes to medical or health related impressions, what ethical boundaries do you feel are absolutely essential for mediums or intuitives to hold?
It's fantastic. For one thing, I am not able to make a diagnosis because I am not a medical test. And I am not legally or ethically able to give medical advice. As a licensed counselor, there are certain things I can do, which is great, including supplements or methods of healing to an extent. But no, I'm not qualified to do that. I can pick up symptoms, I can direct you to people I trust who are qualified and licensed to do that, and I do. But it's really important to draw that boundary. Also, as a therapist, I am equipped and trained to talk about really intense trauma, like sexual abuse or things like that. If you are not a trained therapist, please don't. I have had people tell me that they were told by a medium or psychic that they were sexually abused and asked me if I thought that was true. And I'm like, oh my God. So please be really careful who you work with. Use your brain. I don't ever want someone to substitute my intuition for theirs. I know I'm accurate, but if something doesn't feel right for you, it's really important to deal with that. I love that you're a spiritualist minister because I've spent a lot of time in spiritualist church with evidential medium. And that's so important to do that ethically and properly. So, yeah, really be discerning about who you work with.
Absolutely. We all have abilities, right? Whether we're baby mediums, brand new to it, or we've been doing this for 40 or 50 years. If you're not an expert in something, stay in your lane.
Yes.
And if you pick up something, use discernment. Is this meant to help the person you're reading for? And And are you qualified to share what you're intuiting?
Yes.
There's information that I pick up, but I'm not a medical professional. I am not a qualified therapist, and I stay in my lane. There may be information I'm picking up, it may be accurate, but we have to have that really fine line. And I see this with people that have come to me from other spaces and they want to do the medical intuition. And I go, okay, well, that's not my specialty. The evidential, all day long, I'm your girl. And when they start sharing how they've been guided and taught to give information, it's got red flags all over it, Katie.
I know.
And the shit that goes on in the community, I go, this is damaging people. This is very dangerous. And so we need to use discernment big time. For those of you that are listening, Katie's qualified for what she's actually doing. And she knows what realm she can work in when something goes beyond her scope of expertise. She has qualified professionals she's referring people to. I love that, especially if there's people that are grieving, or maybe there is some health stuff I pick up. I always share that in a loving, ethical way, but then refer them. Maybe just, maybe go get that checkup, right?
Exactly. People will want to know if they have cancer or something really serious.
Hmm.
We can talk symptoms, but I'll be like, that's not something that I am qualified to talk about. If I feel like there's something serious, I will say, if it were me, I might want to get that checked sooner rather than later. There are just so many ethical boundaries being crossed, and people are paying a fortune. People are being made to feel they have to depend on that person, that they need them as the guide. Our job is to help guide them, make them stronger, and not make them dependent on us, at least for what I do.
I agree, absolutely. For somebody who is listening, what's one daily practice that's super simple so they can differentiate between a fear response in their body and something that's actually genuine intuition?
In my book, I share a technique that literally saved my life. I've used it for Lyme, eating disorders, everything. It's a written technique where you write to your intuition, body, or guides, and then listen for whatever comes in. It's detailed in my book, and then whatever you get from that, write that down, and then write back to it. And then whatever you get, write that down, write back to it. It might seem like journaling. It's not the same. It's deeper. When you write, you have to stop what you're doing. We're all running around like crazy people. So you sit down with your paper. You are just looking at that blank piece of paper. It's like a mindfulness meditation, and it helps center you. You may still receive things that are fearful, but it doesn't mean they're not coming from intuition. And because you're in a calmer space, with your nervous system calmer,
Mm-hmm.
you can receive it in a less threatening manner and give more thought and time to it. If it is something scary, you can consider it instead of just pushing it down and letting it get even bigger.
Love it. Simple, practical, but like super effective. I want to ask you something. For developing mediums and intuitives, what does a healthier, more compassionate relationship with their own body actually look like in everyday life outside of, oh, I'm doing readings and I'm spiritual? For everybody who's listening to Katie's response, maybe just notice one part of your body that's asking for attention, just like simply noticing. You're not fixing anything while she's just sharing this.
We tend to pick things out that we don't like. That's where your focus tends to be. You look in the mirror, you find the one pimple you have, or whatever. Try to be really conscious of what you are saying to yourself. What messages are you giving yourself? It can be subtle. Think about, are the things you're saying supportive, or are they, you look like crap, or you are too tall, or whatever the things are? Be really conscious of those, and then make an effort to, at least, if you can't make something positive, at least try to make it neutral. Find something that you like, maybe your eyes, maybe your hair, maybe something that you like, or at least don't hate about yourself, that you can switch your focus to so that it's not always negative or being hard on yourself. That is something that seems little, but every time you do it, it gets more powerful. Pay attention to how you feel in your body because you will calm down a little. Maybe some of that tension will go. Some of that, I have to shield myself from the rest of the world because I'm a horrible person and no one will like me. That takes a lot of energy and causes a lot of anxiety and depression. Whereas if you're like, okay, maybe there's things I don't like, but maybe there's things I do like, and I can also let that in. There's a ton of stuff in my book for self-esteem and getting to know your authentic self, which is part of it too, without so much judgment. We are so judgy.
We can be our own worst critics. For those listening to the podcast, we have to heal our own stuff so that way we can be the clearest channel for whatever divine energy we're bringing through. The work starts with us as the human, not just our connection with the other world.
It really does. And also, when you are flexing your intuitive abilities or mediumship abilities, one of the things that gets in the way is fear of being wrong, fear of making a fool of yourself, right? My reports and stuff are really accurate, but sometimes I will get something for another person I'm doing a reading for that day, and it goes on the wrong report. Or I will interpret as a human and mess it up, so it's okay. And to be open to not being perfect will really help your abilities blossom.
For sure. Such great advice. And it's timeless. It really is timeless advice. From your connection with spirit and the work that you actually do in all of your intuitive work, what do you sense spirit is inviting us to understand about our body right now?
I am hearing that spirit and our bodies really want us to be happy and healthy. It doesn't want us to feel bad. It doesn't want us to be sick. If we're living a life that is not fulfilling or not authentic or hurting us in some way, getting sick or getting into an accident or pain or emotional stuff, it's going to get your attention. And it's doing that for a reason so that we can change for the better and be happier. A lot of people think of illness and all those things as horrible things that happen to us. So if you're thinking you're a bad person, you don't deserve good things. And yes, it's not pleasant, but it doesn't mean that you deserve bad things. I think the body and spirit wants you to be happy and wants you to be healthy, and it will use any means it can to get your attention and bring you in a positive direction.
Oof. So listen, everybody, this is some powerful stuff. You're going to want to go back, re-listen to this episode again, because there's so many nuggets of gold that really can support you in multiple areas of your life to bring in that healing from within. Katie, thank you so much for being here and sharing your experience and your perspective with us. Can you let people know what you have up and coming, where they can get in contact with you?
I don't have any events going on. I might secretly be writing another book, or not so secretly. The best place is my website, which is katiebeecher.com. I'm on Instagram and all the different places. Love to hear from people.
Thank you so much. For those of you that are listening, I'd invite you to keep just gently noticing how your body is speaking to you over the next few days through tension, fatigue, maybe even those little flutters of knowing, because you don't have to decode everything at once. Stay really curious. And if this conversation was supportive, feel free to share it with someone who's also learning to trust their intuition. Remember, you're not behind, you're becoming. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next episode. The Connected Spirit isn't just a podcast, it's a remembering of who we are, a remembering of our connection to spirit, and a remembering that we are never walking this path alone. Mediumship isn't just about speaking with spirits. It's about deepening the connection to our own spirit, to one another, and to the energy that moves through everything. So as you leave this space, ask yourself, what part of this conversation stirred something within you? What connection is Spirit inviting you to strengthen? If this episode spoke to you, please share it, leave a review, and connect with me on Instagram at Medium Courtney Dawson, or visit my website at mediumcourtneydawson.com. Your presence in this community matters, because connection isn't just about what we seek, it's what we are. Until next time, trust your spirit, trust the unseen world, and trust that you are always, always connected.